then there are 3 books. What is wrong with me? And then there are 3 books. So the next book that bought, which one? There was. Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with a book haul. The last book haul that I did was, I think, early January, in which I talked about the books that I bought in December and about the book buying ban that I put myself on from January this year to March this year. But yeah, once my book buying ban ended, I went and bought a bunch of ebooks and then some other books as well, which brought this book haul to about 54 books. I'm not regretting any of it, not one bit. Please excuse the sound in the background. It's raining. Anywho, I have a lot of books that I want to show you today that I bought or was gifted over these past 6 months. That is from January to June. I will do a separate book haul. Yes, of course, a separate book haul for the books that I got in July, which is my birthday month, so I can, justify that I got so many books. So yeah. But before we get on with the book haul, I make book related videos on this channel and occasionally a few travel related and a few movie related videos as well. So if you like what you see, if you like my content, then don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon so that you can stay updated as and when I post new videos. So what happened was, I went on a book buying ban from January of 2020 to March 2020. So in those 3 months, I did not buy any books apart from a few that I was gifted and which were sent to me by publishers. So I'm pretty proud that I managed to go on that ban and stay on that ban for 3 months. But the moment April 1st rolled around, I went and bought a bunch of ebooks, and then I completely forgot about my promise to myself that I would extend my book buying ban if I could, which I couldn't, obviously. So I'll be sharing with you the books that I got in every month, so that's going to be easy for me to keep track of. So these are the books that I got in January 2020. So the first book was Irfan Khan, The Man, the Dreamer, the Star by Asim Shabra, and I did enjoy reading it. It was sent to me by Rupa Publications and I liked the insight into Irfan Khan's life. It was a good read, but the only thing I have a complaint about is that the author has just given spoiler upon spoiler in there. I haven't watched or read Namesake, and the author has put the ending of the story in that, and I'm like, why would you do something like that? The second book I got in January is The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by Chris Riddell. And this book is I read it for the 24-hour readathon that I hosted in January, and I loved it. It's a mix of a retelling of Sleeping Beauty and I'm not sure, Snow White, I think. Yeah, it's a mix of both of them, and I loved the way the author Neil Gaiman has written it. It's very sweet, it's simple, but it also has so many beautiful illustrations by Chris Riddell that I just wanted to sit there and just keep looking at it. So the next book is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This book was a gift from my husband. We got a book in Melbourne, Little Women, which only had the first part, only Little Women, but this one also has good vibes in it. So we got this just before we were about to go and watch the movie, and I'm glad I read this. It's one of my favorite classics and I love it. I absolutely love Jo, I absolutely love Laurie and Beth. Oh my god, there are so many amazing characters in there, and the story is also so beautiful. What can I say? And the next book is a graphic novel. It's called Watchmen, written by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. This is one of the most celebrated graphic novels out there, if I'm not mistaken. And my husband asked me, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And I said, okay, get me Watchmen and Little Women and Sleeper and the Spindle. So he got me all 3 of those, and I read 2, Little Women and Sleeper and the Spindle, but this one I'm yet to read. Hopefully I'll pick it up in August. So these were the books that I got in January, and now on to the books that I got in February 2020. So the first book is One of Us Is Lying by Karen M. McManus, a very good friend of someone who I consider a brother, Rohit. He gifted me this book in February, and I had this on my wish list for a long time. So he was like, okay, tell me a book that you want that's on your wish list and I'll get it for you. So a big thank you to Rohit for getting me this book. And then there are 3 books that were sent to me by Bloomsbury India, all of which I read, and 2 of which I absolutely loved. I'll talk about them. The first one is Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood, which is the first in the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. I was part of the Bookstagram tour for this book, and I loved being a part of it. I loved reading this book. This turned me into a complete emotional mess. I cried, I bawled like a baby, and this fantasy series is like out of this world. I absolutely love it. It's 800 pages long, and I was like, I want more. So thank you Bloomsbury India for sending me this book and having me on the Bookstagram tour. I mean, I've said this in about 2 or 3 videos by now, and I still would say it every time this book came out. So the next book that Bloomsbury India sent me is House of Trelawney by Hannah Rothschild. I heard that The Improbability of Love by this author is really good. I have that book as well. So I thought this one was also going to be a great book, but unfortunately this disappointed me, and I wrote a whole blog post. I think it's up on my blog, the link to which I leave in the description box below. The next book that Bloomsbury India sent to me was Swimming in the Dark by Thomas Jedrowski. And this is a book that I read in June and I loved it. I haven't been able to write a review for this yet, but whenever I do write a review, I will edit the description and I'll put it in the description box below. And I love this. This is a gay love story set in 1980 Poland, and it's so beautifully intertwined with the politics of Poland at that time. I don't know how to put my feelings about this book into words. This is one book that you should definitely read if you're looking for a queer love story. The next book is called The Crown of 7 Stars by Geetanjali Murari. This was sent to me by Penguin India, and thank you for the copy, Penguin India. And I did enjoy reading this book, but it was not at the level that I was expecting it. I found that this was a little too rushed, a little too ambitious, putting it in that much. There's a lot of backstory, a lot of things going on in the book which was not put that well in writing. That's my opinion, but it is a good fast-paced one-time read. At least that's what I'll say. The next book was also sent to me by Bloomsbury India, and the book is A Paragon by Colin McCann. I read it and I did not enjoy it. I did not like it. This is the story of 2 men, one from Israel, one from Palestine, who have both lost their daughters in terror attacks, I think. And I don't know, I did not like the writing style. It was disconnected. It was just not for me. I mean, there are a lot of people who loved it, who enjoyed it, but this writing style was just not for me. The next 2 books were sent to me by Macmillan India, and I loved both of them. One of them has made its way onto my favorite books of 2020 list. So the first book is You Are Not Alone by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This is a thriller, and even though there were a few places which I felt that they were too convenient in my opinion, but overall it was a good thriller that keeps you on your toes at all times. So that's a book that I would definitely suggest. The second book that Macmillan India sent to me was The Mercies by Kiran Millwood Hargrave. This is set in the island of Vardø, Norway. In the early 17th century, I think early 1600s, there was a huge storm which killed all the men in the island of Vardø, and that was the time around which the Salem witch trials were being held, and what happens on this island during those times. And there's a romance that will touch your heart. It will make you want to go back and change things. You will want to make things better, but obviously you can't because it's all in the past. It's happened, and that will break you. And I'm glad I read this book. So a big thank you to Macmillan India for sending me this book. So I did not buy any books in March 2020 or get any books from the publishers. And now on to April 2020, where I bought a bunch of ebooks. So the first ebook is Murder at Moonlight Cafe and Other Stories by Isha Vasyam Dash. This I've been seeing this everywhere on Bookstagram. I had seen this at the time, and it was at a very reasonable price, so I bought it. People had been raving about this book at the time, so I was like, okay, if I'm going to buy a few books, let this be one of them. And then there's The Overdue Life of Amy Byler by Kelly Harms. I brought this completely on a whim. I don't know what it is about. I don't care also by this point in time. Someday when I'm in the mood, I'll go and pick this up and I'll read it. The next book is The Bright Test by Helen Hoang. I read The Kiss Quotient, I think sometime last year. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I thought this was also, since this is a sequel to that one, not a sequel, sort of a companion novel. So I bought it, I read it, but it was not as good as the Kiss Quotient. And then there's I Quit Now What by Zareen Khan. I did enjoy this book, but not as much as I enjoyed Koi Good News. But this was a sort of a cliche kind of story. This was one of the first books that she wrote, if I'm not mistaken. This was too cliche for my liking. I thought, since I left a job in IT and I came into writing, and even the protagonist of the story is something like that, so I thought it would resonate with me. But even though it did resonate in places, I thought that the overall thing was quite cliche. The next ebook is The Secret Proposal by Anisha Brahma. I read this book and I did enjoy it, but as the author said, she wrote this a long time ago and she has come a long way since then, so I'm glad. Though the plot line was a little, what do you say, it was fun, but it could have been a lot better. But yes, it was a good one-time fun read. Again, please ignore the sound in the background. It's raining and I hate it. The next book is The Library Book by Susan Orlean. This is a book that so many people have told me is amazing, it's really wonderful, so I'm glad I got my hands on it. The simple cover also makes me like, okay, the cover and the title of the book goes so well, so I'm really proud of this for some reason. I don't even know why. So the next book is The Inimitable Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. I absolutely love P.G. Wodehouse, his dry sense of humor, his wit. I love the way he puts it into his stories, so I thought this is also, I was getting at a pretty decent price, so went ahead and bought it. Obviously I haven't read it. Okay, so the next one is Orphaned by S.L. Bhairappa. This was written in Kannada by S.L. Bhairappa and translated into English by Sandeep Balakrishna. This is a very good book. I read it earlier this month. It talks about why cows are, treated like goddesses in our country, in India, in the Hindu tradition. Okay, so if you want to learn about why cows are treated the way they are in India, then I think this would be a good place to start. It also talks about religious spirituality as well. It's really good and I would highly recommend it. The next book is The Monsters Still Lurk by Aruna Nambiar. I am planning to read it in July. I don't know if I will be able to get to it, but I am planning to read it. I saw one of my favorite bookstagrammers talk about it on her stories, I think, and so I'm like, okay, I'm sold. I think I'm going to like this as well. The next book is The Innocent, the first in the Will Robbie series by David Baldacci. I read Redemption by this author and I loved it. I love the way he paces his stories, and I thought this was at a reasonable price, so I bought it, obviously. I think this is also a mystery investigative kind of story. I'm not really sure. The next one is The Angel's Beauty Spots by K.R. Meera. I read The Poison of Love earlier this year and I absolutely loved it. The translation was a bit okay, but the plot of the story and the flow is completely amazing, the way K.R. Meera writes. This is a collection of 3 novellas, and the first novella I was sort of, on the fence about. I'm mostly good about open endings, but this one sort of, it left me restless because I wanted to know what happened at the end of it. But otherwise, the other 2 stories, they broke my heart, they ripped it apart. And then I also bought the Kindle ebook for the Mahabharata written by C. Rajagopalachari, and as a kid, I always read the Ramayana, and I don't know much about the Mahabharata as much as it pains to pains me to say. But after having read a lot of retellings, like for example by Sharad Komaraju, the Hastinapur series by him, and Devdutt Patnaik's Jaya, and even the Fisher Queen's Dynasty by Kavita Kane, and it really made me think that I need to know more about the Mahabharata. I need to learn about it. The next book is Yes, No, Maybe So by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed. This is a book that I'd seen everywhere when it released, and I've seen a lot of mixed reviews actually, but I was getting it at a very cheap price, and I didn't want to have a physical copy of it for some reason, and that feels really weird saying it because I usually prefer physical copies to ebooks. The last book I bought in April was Love Boat Taipei by Abigail Hing Wen. I'm really sorry I botched that up. I saw Jesse the Reader talk so much about it. He loves this book, like he absolutely loves this book, and anything that he talks about and he loves, he hypes up. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get it blindly. So those were the books I bought in April. Now on to the books that I bought in May. The first two books that I bought in May are the 6th and 7th in the Tracy Crosswhite series by Robert Dugoni. He has a way of writing. He has a way of writing so amazingly well. I read My Sister's Grave earlier this year. I think it was in April or May only. I can't remember which month. The 6th is called A Steep Price and the 7th is called A Cold Trail, I think. Yes, A Cold Trail. I leave the covers here. It's a series that I was really wanting to read, and I finally started reading it and I absolutely love it. And then I bought The Rudest Book Ever by Shweta Gangwar. This book is said to be witty, it's said to be sharp, it's said to be something on the lines of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, but in a much better manner. And I'm hoping that The Rudest Book Ever is on a completely different level than The Subtle Art. And from now on there are a lot of physical copies because that was when Amazon started delivering physical copies as well. So the first book is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas. This is the 4th in the Throne of Glass series. If you've been with my channel for a while now, you'll know that I was on the fence about the first book, Throne of Glass, and then Crown of Midnight and Heir of Fire, the 2nd and 3rd in the series, I absolutely loved. So this was at a comparatively reasonable price, so I had to go and buy it. Okay, so the power is back and we can just continue with this video. Like, please don't go off again. Please let me finish. So the next book that I bought in May is Funny Boy by Shyam Selvadurai. This is set in Sri Lanka, and it talks about boy's bittersweet passage to maturity and sexual awakening, set against escalating political tensions in Sri Lanka during the 7 years leading up to the 1983 riots. And I've heard a lot of good things about this book, that it's amazing, that it's heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking and whatnot, and I think I need to be prepared with a box of tissues handy as well. So the next book is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is one of my favorite books of all time. This was the first ever audiobook that I listened to and I loved it, so I thought, why not get a physical copy, because physical copies are something else, and this finally came down to a price which I could afford. A reread is pending, but I am reading Clap When You Land at the moment by the same author, and so maybe I'll put it off for next month or the month after that. And then the next one is One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. This is the sequel to One of Us Is Lying, and so I thought this was also at a reasonable price, so I went and bought the book. I'm really excited to read this, but you know what I'm more excited about? It's these sprayed pages for the first book. Look at this. This doesn't have, I would have loved it if these had blue sprayed edges. The next book is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. This is I think this is a memoir actually. This is about a psychotherapist and national advice columnist, a hilarious, thought-provoking and surprising new book that takes us behind the scenes of a therapist's world where her patients are looking for answers, and so is she. I want to read it this month. I've put it in my July TBR pool as well, but I don't know if I will be able to. This is high on the priority list, yes, but not sure if I will be able to. But I've heard a lot of good things about this book, that it's must read, a book about mental health that everyone should read and all that. So yeah, this is a book that I got in May, right? Yeah, May. The next book that I got is in May is Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. As you know, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is one of my favorite authors of all time. I love her writing. Although her thoughts on intersectional feminism, there's a lot to be, spoken about. But yes, I love the way she writes her stories. I've read 3 of her books and loved them. This was actually almost going to be the book club pick for June for Drama Queen-a-thon, and it didn't. Kafka on the Shore edged it out, as well as Kafka on the Shore and Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. The next book is Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. This is a Penguin cloth-bound edition, and I've heard that it's funny and it has a sort of an edge to it, and an eclectic edge. I don't know, I read that somewhere, I don't even know where I read it, but I'm really excited to read this. More than being excited to read it, I am really excited that I have this. Like, it's so gorgeous. One day I will own all the Penguin cloth-bound editions. One day. The next book is Stories of Us by Bobby Sachdeva. This was sent to me as a review copy, and I did do a full review of it on my channel. I leave the link here as well as in the description box below. This is a book that has, I think, 41 short stories, and all of which talk about a certain moral or certain value. So although I did enjoy reading a lot of these stories, there were many more that could have been so much better. And now on to the books that I got in June. I think I bought a bunch of books in June. I think there are about 18 books here, so please bear with me. The first book is a physical copy of an ebook that I've already read, and I absolutely loved. I bawled like a baby as I read this, like full heart-wrenching sobs, okay? And that book is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover, and I've become a fan of Colleen Hoover's writing. And I don't know what else to say. This is a story of a marriage that's going through a rough patch, and it revisits their life and their thoughts and their equation with each other, and I loved it. Then comes Birthday by Meredith Russo. This is a book that I started reading in late June and I brought into July, but I really loved this book. It has a trans main character. It talks about Morgan finding her own identity in the world and what happens to her as she is, looking for that identity, and how the people around her treat her, how her best friend Eric treats her. But my only problem is that the author, Meredith Russo, who herself is a trans woman, she turned out to have a history of abuse against her ex-partner. So I realized that this author was the same author that I had read about a while ago, only after the book came home. But I'm not going to buy any more of their books. The next 2 books I've been wanting to get for a long time now, and now that I've read the Grisha trilogy, I think these 2 books will finally, I can finally get to it. Maybe I'll read them in August, and since I have the duology, I'm set. Like, I can read it and not worry about not knowing what happens next. So the books I'm talking about are Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, the Six of Crows duology, and I'm really excited to read these, and now I can finally, go ahead and read them. The next book is Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. Someone on Twitter had suggested this to me last year when I had asked for recommendations, and I finally bought it. I love this edition. Look at how beautiful it is, and it has sprayed edges, and maybe I'll pick it up on a whim. I haven't added it to the July TBR pool, but you know me, I can pick up anything at any time, and nobody will even know what's happening. The next book is Why You Should Read Children's Books Even Though You Are So Old and Wise by Catherine Rundle. I loved this book. This talks about the importance of children's books and how people are so condescending towards, the whole genre of children's books. And it also talks about how children's books are so important because they play a huge role in shaping the children's lives and shaping how they turn out as adults. The day I received this, I finished reading it. I think it took me an hour because I was trying to read everything and absorb everything in a manner. Like half the time I was like, yes, you're right. The next book is Half the Night Is Gone by Amitabh Bagchi. This was nominated for some award. I remember what award was this? Yeah, I can't remember which award it was nominated for, but ever since then I've heard a lot of good things about this book and that it's really great. This is about a celebrated Hindi novelist Vishwanath who is heartbroken by the recent loss of his son in an accident. The tragedy spurs him to write a novel set in the household of Lala Moti Chand. It follows fatherhood, brotherhood and childhood, love, loyalty and poetry all come to the fore. Okay, spell, yeah. And the next book that I bought is an ebook for A River in Darkness, One Man's Escape from North Korea by Masaji Ishikawa. The title is self-explanatory, so I'm not going to talk much about it. A man escaping North Korea, someone escaping North Korea is like a big deal given what we know about how North Korea is such a tight dictatorship. So I was really excited to read it, and it was on my wish list, and the moment the price came down, I'm like... The next book that I bought was How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. I think this was released last year if I'm not mistaken. It was released last year, and I also mentioned it in one of my blog lists that I made, like the 10 books releasing this month that I'm really excited to read, that series, and it had been on my wish list since then, but in the light of the Black Lives Matter movement, this came to the fore, and I'm like, this is a great time to go ahead and buy this and read it. I've put this on my July TBR pool, so I'm hoping I will be able to read it this month. Let's see how that one goes. This is a memoir of a black queer man, young black gay man from the South, as he fights to carve out a place for himself. The next book is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. So I went and bought the Six of Crows duology. So it was obvious that I had to buy this as well. But the actual event, the incident that triggered me into buying this book was the announcement that Leigh Bardugo made of the second in this series. I think this is going to be a duology as well. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this is going to be a duology as well from Nikolai's perspective. The next book is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. As I've mentioned, Colleen Hoover is an author that makes me ugly cry every time I read one of her books. So this was also at a very reasonable price, so I went ahead and bought it. I'm planning to read it this month for the Colleen Hoover book club that Niyati over at the Bookshire on Instagram runs. I'm ready to cry, I'm ready to bawl. Yes. Bawl as in B-A-W-L, not B-A-L-L. The next book is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This is a thriller which has got so many good reviews. People are literally crazy about this one. Goodreads is like filled with good reviews. I think this has more than a rating of more than 4. So I'm really excited to read this. I'll be reading this for the reading rush that starts on July 20th. I don't know when this video will go up, but it might have already started by the time this video goes up. I mentioned this in my Reading Rush TBR video. The next book is A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Ram. But yes, this is a book that so many people have talked about on Bookstagram. Not Indian Bookstagram, I've not seen a lot of people talking about it. But other than that, a lot of people have said that this is a beautiful, heartbreaking book. I'm not sure. This is set in Palestine in 1990 and Brooklyn in 2008. So it follows 2 timelines, and I'm really excited to read this one. The next book is another Colleen Hoover book. It's called Regretting You. It's Colleen Hoover's latest release. I got an ebook of this because the physical copy, as you know, some of these new releases, it looks like the publishers don't think that Indian readers want to read those books. They're like, okay, we'll give them after 3-4 months. What? Help us read more books, no? And then there is Heidi by Johanna Spyri. I've already read this book and I absolutely love it. I love this edition as well, this Scholastic India edition. It's beautiful, and the story is also so beautiful, so optimistic, so fresh, so bright, and it makes me want to go and live in the mountains along with Heidi and her grandfather and her goats and Peter and Clara and everyone. and I love this book, and I don't know what else to say. The next book is A Burning by Megha Majumdar. This is a debut novel. This is Megha Majumdar's debut book, and it talks about three people and how their paths intersect, I think. And I've heard a lot of good things about this book. I mean, it's not everywhere like some of these other books are, but I've heard that this is a great debut novel, and it's set in India. Yeah, so I'm really excited to read this. I've added this to my July TBR pool as well, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get a start on this one. The next book is one that I bought after a dear friend said that if you like Kafka on the Shore, then you should read this book, because it's similarly eccentric and eclectic. Like there are a lot of similarities in there. And the book is If on a Winter's Night a Traveler by Italo Calvino. I've read the blurb and it's a little convoluted, the story, and I do like stories with a convoluted plot. So I finished reading Kafka on the Shore yesterday, by the way, and I loved it. And I have a feeling that, as my friend said, this is also going to be one such book, and that I'm going to enjoy reading it. The next and the last book that I got in June was sent to me by Bloomsbury India. A big thank you, Bloomsbury India, for sending this to me. And the book is called Fate of Eight by Dheeraj Singh. This is a thriller apparently, and I haven't read the blurb at all, but I really find this interesting, and I hope that this is going to be one of those books that will keep me hooked till the very end. So those were the books that I got from January 2020 to June 2020. Did you like this video? Did you not like this video? Which of these books have you read? Which ones do you want to read? Which ones do you love? Which ones are you meh about? Which ones do you absolutely hate? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.